And then we look at the list later on and think, God, no, we didn't really say that. Scratch that now. You know how that goes, I'm sure, too. And then eventually we end up with a list of names that we think are really good. And then we have to go to see whether we can register them. And so we start the thing of registration, which is fun. It costs a fortune to do. Anyhow, and then we end up with a name. So I have a whole lexicon of names that I can draw on. The importance of that is to then talk about how I approach the perfumes I create. For me, anybody who's ever heard me talk before, read anything I've ever said, my belief has never changed. I believe that all of us fundamentally like perfumes in one style much more than others. Whilst we might appreciate other perfumes, and of course you can appreciate something, if you like chypre perfumes, the chances you're going to wear a white floral, I think, are very, very small, and vice versa. So I don't know anybody in the history of perfumery, and maybe there's been someone, but I don't know who that person is, who has looked at the palette of scent that's available. And so for me, what I'm trying to create is a totally balanced palette of fragrances. In the same way, for a woman buying colour cosmetics, you'd expect a balanced palette of colours. For me, it's about a balanced palette of smell. And so, to give you an example, if you look at the floral scents that I create, I knew I didn't have a fresh floral. It's one thing I didn't have. So, out of the list of names I had, one name, Mischief, I thought was a great name. Because think of someone who is mischievous, think of a child who's being a mischief. What do they normally do? Run into a room, do the naughty thing. Not me. And so a bunch of flowers, of course, can't possibly be naughty, can they? But the thing of playfulness suggested something which needed movement. Whereas if you take a scent with a name like Danger, Danger doesn't suggest movement, it suggests something totally different. Or another floral I created called Innuendo. I think it's also a lovely name for a scent. Because what is an innuendo? It's just a suggestion of something. So because it's a suggestion, it suggested to me something which should be soft. And so innuendo is very, very powdery. So when I give you them to smell, I hope that I can help you understand how I came with the scent, always based on the name. So I look where I think there's something missing in the palette, and then I look at the names, and then I start the creative process. I don't know if that's interesting or not, but it's kind of how I go about making the perfumes. The most esoteric name for a perfume I have is Scandal, because the name looks as if it could be a little blunt, or not crass, but bordering on crass, maybe. Scandal, I call that name very specifically because it's based around white flowers. White flowers contain a molecule called indole. The jasmine from Grasse, which is the most highly prized, as you know, is so prized because it has the highest volume of this molecule called indole. You know we don't smell anything with our nose at all. We smell with the most primitive part of our brain. So when you smell a floral perfume, the rational part of your brain will think, oh, flowers. But the subconscious part of the brain bit which really processes the smell, thinks one thing and one thing only when it smells these type of white flowers: sex. Because indole is, we produce indole, and we produce it wherever we have pubic hair. So I called Scandal Scandal because if people really understood what messages they put in other people's brains, it really could cause just that, a scandal. And the nice thing for me being able to talk to you is that in a shop floor, no one has the time to explain that. The customers don't have the time, it's not the right environment for it. So there are one or two of them that are a little bit esoteric, Scandal being one of them, which is based around this huge